Welcome to Tentative Title with Tim. This is a podcast about creativity, about process, about filmmaking, and about screenwriting. Welcome everybody back to the podcast. I hope everything is going well for you on this Monday. I hope your week is starting out well. So, over the past week, I've been thinking a lot about the fact that a lot of our media, not media like news, but just the way in which stories are being told now is such an open framework, and that you can kind of take all kinds of stories, and there is a medium that you can put them in, and it'll still be successful because of the fact that the audience is used to these different forms. But that brings me to the main, I guess, topic or thought that I had over this week, which was the idea of adapting work. Now, obviously, adapting a comic book or a novel or a short story or whatever, you're adapting a written piece of work that requires the imagination of the audience who's reading it and putting it in to a visual work, which can has different requirements and it usually means you have to compromise the words on the page for what you're able to get in the script, and then from the script into production, and then the all the limitations that come with adapting that into a movie or into a series. But this idea came because of the fact that I was hearing that that there was going to be another, I guess, remake of Bewitched, and there was going to be, adapting of the National Treasure movies into a TV series, and those stories reminded me of the fact that there are some stories that just they should stay in a certain framework, in a certain format, because every single time that they try to take a television show and then adapt it for the big screen, my critique of most of them is that usually it just feels like a longer episode of the TV show. Like, it usually never really feels like a movie because of the fact that, you got these familiar characters and they're going on a familiar journey, which you probably would have seen in maybe a two-part, episode of it's like, it never really feels like a cinematic journey because of the fact that the story itself was meant to be on television. And I wonder if we really need to worry about adapting work that is meant to be a series into a film anymore. Because with so much content that is not we have The Queen's Gambit, we have all kinds of limited series that are on Netflix right now and are on other streaming sites. You can still make that story, and it doesn't have to be contained within a 2-hour framework. It can still be a show. It can be a show that's you're taking it more seriously because you got a lot more episodes to tell that story. It can be more. It can still be this episodic journey, and you don't have to condense it down. And I just thought that it was really do we need to adapt work anymore? obviously, like I said, if you have like a written work or or like a comic book or something, like you still need to adapt that into the visual form that it's going to be as a series or as a film. But when it comes to something that is already like that has already been a TV show, it's like you can reboot the TV show. It doesn't have to be a movie. And now I know like there was a time when people like the term transmedia came on the scene, and I was just like, what the heck is transmedia? And like I heard about it when I was in school, and it's like, oh, it's basically telling a story over many different mediums. Like you have a portion of the story that's the movie, maybe it's the main draw to the story, and then you have the novels and the comic books, and then you have the video games, and all these other ways in which the story is being told, which from the point of view of a storyteller, like that's amazing. Like, wow, I don't have to be limited to like these 2 hours or 22 episodes or 13 episodes. Like I can branch off and tell other stories, and that's really exciting. But when it comes to adapting something that like maybe it was a show that came out in like the 90s or the 80s, and then they're like, we're gonna make a movie, it's gonna be a movie about this, and you're like, well, why? Well, why turn it into a movie? Like, why limit the story in that way when you could just make a limited series, or like you can reboot it as a television show? Now, obviously there have been some shows that were kind of like that they were popular back in the day, and then they made a movie of it, and it did pretty well, and that's great. But I don't know of many that have like accomplished that feat. Like most of them seem like they've been just they undercut what the story is by trying to condense it into a film. And so I bring the question up to you guys, if you think that adapting like a visual work into another visual work is even like necessary, because we kind of expect to have limited series, we expect to have movies, we expect all of it to now be in the same place. And that's another game changer, is that all of this stuff is still going to be viewed through the same device. It's still going to be viewed on your television or on your phone. Like there's not going to be any change. And I mean, I guess the main draw of turning something into a movie is that you can put it into a movie theater and it could possibly make a lot of money. And that's always the risk with, even with movies that aren't being adapted from prior shows and from prior works. But still, like I don't know how often that actually pays off, at least from an artistic standpoint, because like I said before, it always feels like the movie version of the show just feels like a longer episode of the show. And some examples are kind of like the X-Files movie, or the Simpsons, or like just any show that kind of came out, I guess, in the 90s, where they thought, okay, the way we're gonna bring we're gonna elevate this story by putting it by making a movie version of it. And I've even heard some criticism of like the Star Trek movies, which I kind of understand now when it was put in that context of like, the Star Trek show was meant to be a show. It was not meant to be a movie. And it, there have been some good Star Trek movies, but for the most part, like that story is meant to be contained in like, a 45-minute or like an hour, episode. It's not meant to be told over 2 hours. It's not to say that it, like I said before, they haven't been successful or that there hasn't been some good storytelling there. But, like watching some of them, I kind of feel that way sometimes, where I'm just like, yeah, this just could have been an episode. Like, why is this a 2-hour movie? So anyway, guys, that's kind of what I had, on my mind this past week. And I think we're at a point where we can kind of like put away our ideas of certain of like when we're making something, like we can narrow it down to, this is going to be a limited series, or this is going to be a series that has like 4 seasons. We're kind of we've seen the track record of successful shows that have set out to have a criteria of like, this is the amount of time we need to tell this story. We are not going to put it into a movie because we won't be able to tell this story in a movie. And they've kind of they've stuck to their guns, and they pitched it the way it was supposed, like the way they wanted the story to unfold, which in a way I give them credit for, because if you go into a meeting knowing exactly what your story is and how long it's going to take to tell it, it actually makes things a lot easier to kind of to sell it. Basically, it's like, and especially if you're like, okay, Netflix, I have a series that I know I can tell over the course of like 3 seasons. And then you go into the room and you lay out like what it is, and then you don't have to worry about, well, hopefully you don't have to worry about, a network or Netflix canceling your show, because you've already laid out like where the show is supposed to go, or like what the whole end game is. Because this is a podcast for another day, but that's been a major frustration for me to getting into new shows, is that I don't want to be invested in a show that's going to be canceled. Like I always go towards the shows that have already, like, they've had their final season, they've had their final episode. Hopefully the arc has been completed by the time they reach there. But I can't invest in a show if I don't know if it's going to be canceled. It's just, that's the reality. And that, that's why I liked shows like The Good Place. Like, I knew for a fact that Michael Schur pitched it as 4 or 5 seasons. Like, he went in saying, no, this show is only going to be this long, and this is my arc of the entire story. This is, like, maybe he didn't know exactly how he was going to get there, because from season to season, as they were breaking the story, he would find things, or they would, like through production and through the discovering the characters more, that they would find different ways to take it. But it was always pointing to the fact that it was going to end after a certain season. And I love that idea, because like, I know that by the end that I'm going to get a resolution, because it's already been thought about beforehand. It's already, there's already like an end frame of what is supposed to happen, and what it all amounts to. But there are certain shows that, like, I try to give new shows a chance, and I try to watch, like, if a show's really good, and like, I'll try to invest, but I kind of do it with at arm's length, because I'm like, I don't want to be too invested in these characters, because there may be a possibility that they're gonna cancel the show. So anyway, guys, that's like I said, that's all I got for today. I hope everybody's being safe. I hope you're wearing the mask, social distance, washing hands, sanitizer, all that kind of stuff. I hope that like everything's good in your part of the world, and or that things are getting better. But yeah. Anyway, guys, I will talk to you on the next one. And also, if you want to connect with me, I have a email for the podcast. It's tentative.title.with.tim.podcast@gmail.com. Also, I have a Twitter account for the podcast where I post episodes, and that is at title_Tim. And you can find also on the Facebook page, I have a page for the podcast, so you can connect with me there. Looking forward to hearing from all of you, and until then, I'll catch you on the next one.